Three. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Transaction of such business as may legally come before it. And before we start the meeting, I'd like to ask Brother Jennings if he'll give the invocation for us.
Our Father, which art in heaven, as again we come before thee, O Heavenly Father, asking blessings upon this board, members of this organization, and this country as a whole. We realize, O Heavenly Father, that a lot of our people are now frustrated, but we realize that they would just walk a little closer with thee, that the comfort that they seek and are crying out for would be so readily, Lord. So, O Heavenly Father, help our president here as he strives in this off-election year to bring a message to our people, stir up their hearts, O Heavenly Father, so that they will not become so involved in the other things of life that they cannot see those things which are very close to them. Grant us strength, O Heavenly Father, so that when we depart from this place, that we can go out with a smile on our face and praise this country, O Heavenly Father, which at this most delicate time seems to be coming apart from the seams. And we know, O Heavenly Father, that a house divided cannot stand. But with your guidance, the guidance of the leaders around this table, we hope to make a better land for the young people of this country. Pleasing us a blessing. We ask in your Son's name.
Have the roll call of officers. Screen.
W.H. Phillips.
Here.
Lloyd Bird.
Here.
A.B. Dixon.
Here.
John Jennings.
Here.
Rosalie Allen. Sylvester Cousin. John Hardy.
Here.
Tony Kiriakis. Miss Harold Long.
Here.
James Pierce.
Here.
John Russell.
Here.
Miss Dorothy Thor.
I had a letter from Miss Thor who planned to be here at the meeting, and her husband had been in the hospital, and he had some kind of a relapse, and I had to carry him back to the hospital. And I had a letter yesterday saying she would be unable to attend.
And James Whitted. Miss Vernell Yarborough.
All right, Mr. Hafer here. First item on business is the attorneys representing us in the cookbook suit. And they seem to think that this case is rather serious and that the board should know the seriousness of it. Therefore, I've asked them to come over here today, and they're here to make a report, so I thought we'd hear that report first so they could go on back. So the first item on the thing will be the report on the cookbook suit by the attorneys. While they're getting ready to come in, I might say that we're getting a little bit of money in, a few driblets here and there. My brother's pushing it a little bit, and we've got a couple of $100 in from tobacco workers over in Durham. John Jervis has began to push the sale of them in the Asheville area, and John sold a couple of hundred since Christmas. I think you're going to have a financial report on how much money is there in the cookbook account. It's a little over $1,000 because we haven't given any checks out. So I just thought I'd brief you on that while Mr. Hafer's coming in. This is our attorney, Mr. Gene Hafer, from the firm of Jordan Morris and Hayward. Hope. He's been very, he put a lot of time on this thing, and he's become an expert on cookbooks if any of you need any advice on cookbooks.
How do you get rid of them? Here at work.
Go ahead, Gene, just fire away.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to bring the board greetings from John Jordan, my associate, who probably would have been here if he could have been. I think most of you know him. We have been working with this case and have been working with it for a good while. We started working with it back when Millard Barbie was president. And what happened, for those of you who are not completely familiar with it, I'd like to review it very briefly. A complaint was filed against the North Carolina State AFL-CIO and Millard Barbie president. The complaint alleged that a contract had been made between E.T. Moy and the defendant, whereby the defendant agreed to buy 40,000 cookbooks at a price of $1.25, total of $50,000, and in addition to pay North Carolina sales tax 3%, which would amount to $1,500. And in addition, they said that after this agreement was made, there was another agreement made to put some advertising into the cookbook, and that in that agreement, the representative of Moy and his company would go to potential advertisers with a representative from the union, and they would ask for advertising, and the cost of the income from that advertising would be split 40% to Moy and 60% would be credited to the AFL-CIO. Now that's what they said happened. Millard Barbie did not agree that that's what happened. He said that the $50,000 was to be paid as the books were sold, and that there was no agreement to pay the sales tax. There was no agreement to pay them the $848 that they claimed as an advertising sale commission. It's a difference in what two people say, or we say at least two people. Millard Barbie on the one side and Moy on the other side, and we don't know who his witnesses might be, that there was an agreement for one or more of these claims that he makes. The salesman that went with Millard Barbie to get the advertising is named Bobby Ewer, and he is, we think, a witness who will testify for Moy as to some of the contracts. Now, what we have done is to try and extend the time that this conflict would be existing in order to give us time to sell the cookbooks, to come up with the money, and pay the amount that was due. A large amount has been paid. It's not it isn't half of what the agreement was. What we have done is to come up with these figures. The total amount paid to date on this contract is $17,624.89. There are several ways to figure what is yet due. You can figure it on the basis of $50,000. You can figure it on the basis of $50,000 plus $1,500 plus $848, which is what they're claiming. And in addition to that, they claim interest on the unpaid amount from the time the cookbooks were ready for delivery to us. The interest would be at 6%. The unpaid balance right now is, based on their claim, $34,000 $723.11. And if you figure the interest from March 22nd, 1968, until the time the trial is set for, which is the week of March 23rd, 1970, you're going to come up with approximately 2 years at 6%, and the interest would be $4,166.77. They could possibly recover $34,723.11 plus $4,166.77, and in addition to that, the costs of trial if we lose. In a trial like this, you go to the jury, they present their side of the conflict, we present ours. We have some arguments against what they say. This was set for trial in January, and Millard Barbee was unavailable as a witness for us at that time. My understanding is that he would still be unavailable as a witness if this thing is tried in March.
Why?
He is, according to the information I have, now in the Virgin Islands, working in some capacity in hotel or motel management, and does not plan to return to his home in Durham at any definite time.
Plus, he hasn't answered any your correspondence.
He did not answer my letter. I wrote to him in January telling him about the trial, and this was a letter of January 6th, and I sent a copy to Mr. Hobby. In that letter of January 6th, I asked Millard Barbee to get in touch with us, and I told him about the trial being set for January 19th. I never heard from him. I haven't written to him about the trial that's coming up in March. It's set for the week of March 23rd. I haven't written to him yet. There is still time to do that. I wrote to him at his home in Durham. The letter was never returned. The letter was never answered. There are very few people who could testify for us as to what happened between Moy and other members of his company and Millard Barbee. The only one who could really say what happened and tell the jury exactly what happened would be Millard Barbee himself. Now, there are things that came before the board, and we have minutes of the board meetings where this was presented to the board, and there might be individual members of the board who were on the board at that time who could testify that certain things happened regarding this contract. It's quite serious, gentlemen, and that's the reason I'm here today. We are on the calendar for trial on March 23rd, and just as a normal part of representing a client's interests, we have asked the attorneys representing the other side if there's a possibility of settling the case in advance of trial, to see if there would be something that would be to our advantage and would not be would be something they could agree to. We would try to make it as advantageous as possible for us. And without committing this organization to anything at all, I have some figures which could be the basis for a settlement out of court in advance of trial. Presenting it to you without making a recommendation that you settle, but I would like for you to be very much aware of the seriousness of the situation as we approach the trial time.
Just before you bring that, is there no way we can bring Millard Barbee back here to testify? He's a part of the suit.
He's out of the country. You couldn't. He's out of the jurisdiction of the courts of the state of North Carolina, and by subpoena, which is ordinarily the way you get witnesses in court, by subpoena we could not get him here.
But the other part of the question, is he not a co-defendant?
That's a little unclear. He does not, but they have complained and said that's the wrong one, excuse me. I should have told you about this. In addition, the Millard Moy, rather, the plaintiff, being owed this amount of money at some time, made assignments to other people of a part of this, say, $50,000 that he was eventually supposed to get. And he made assignments to several people. One of them was Edna Cox-Ure, who sued in Columbus County, North Carolina State AFL-CIO, W.M. Barbee president, and she also sued E.T. Moy. She loaned him money, and he made an assignment of this a part of this $50,000 to her. Her claim is $6,250. So she brought a suit now in Columbus County against us and against Moy. And she's also a party to this suit here in Wake County. Well, obviously we're not going to try both of them. The one in Columbus County, we've asked to be dismissed because she's a party here, but that motion that we made to dismiss that suit's never been heard in the courts of Columbus County. We can dispose of her interest here in Wake County, I think. At least as to us. Moy, I don't think, could do that.
Let me ask the question, where's all these contracts that are supposed to have been signed between Moy and the president of the FLCI? Anyone ever, I've never had knowledge of one of them.
Well, there was one simple written statement that they have alleged is a basis for a contract. There are things that are left out of that writing. Now, this is something that...
Do you have a copy of that?
Yes, sir, I do.
I'd like to see it.
Okay. I'd like to read it, and then I'll be happy to show it to you. This is a statement printed on letterhead of North Carolina State AFL-CIO, dated September 11, 1967. It's a letter addressed to Mr. E.T. Moy, Nationwide Office Supplies, Glenwood Avenue, Raleigh, North Carolina. Dear Mr. Moy, this is to place an order for 40,000 cookbooks containing from 600 to 800 recipes at a cost of $1.25 per book for the initial 40,000 book order, and any further books ordered at the same cost. The above order is contingent upon the books being printed in a union shop. Very truly yours, W.M. Barbee, President, and he signed it. Now, this is the basis for the contract.
If I had a letter like that, I'd collect the 50,000, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
No, no, this is...
This is all right.
There are several things unsaid in here. One is the time for payment.
It mentions nothing about how it will be paid.
Mentions nothing about how it will be paid. As most of you probably know, you can enforce a contract that's not in writing, and the agreement of the parties is what really controls. If the parties agree to add to this by a later agreement to sell advertising and split the receipts 40-60, they can do so, and they don't have to put it in writing. But the person who wants to go into court and collect on that contract has to go into court and prove that the contract existed, and prove it to the satisfaction of the jury. Now, they're going to have some trouble proving some of these things that they have alleged. And we'll give them as much trouble as we possibly can, making them prove it.
I want to raise one other question. In checking the minutes, and I've been on this boat, I was on the time the cookbooks came out. I never heard about the additional advertisement. Now, have you been able to find this in the minutes?
I've never heard of this before.
Nothing in the minutes about that kind of knowledge. We've been over this a couple of times. I don't remember the minutes showing
I
you
know
that.
about the fact that we were to pay the company as we receive money from the cookbooks.
I never heard of
But I never-
$50,000.
But I never heard of the fact that we went back and talked to them about advertisement.
We're aware too that the federal government came in and attached this company to him. We were contributing the money rather to him, turning it over to the Internal Revenue.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're aware of this, but there's never been any mentioning of any advertisement for this board or any said amount such as $50,000. Only thing was ever mentioned, as was stated earlier, that you said that we would contribute as we sold books, and I think this is all that you'll ever find in the minutes of any of our board meetings.
Well, even that, I'm afraid, is not too clear in the minutes of the board that we have seen. The minutes are really lacking in detail.
They are.
Right.
Are you saying that
Well, I
if
was
Miller
thinking-
did agree to any of this stuff, anything, no matter about the board and took it on himself, then the state organization is
Liable.
liable for it if Miller made those commitments without their knowledge?
They could argue this in law, that he had the apparent authority to enter into a contract for these cookbooks based on what the board had permitted him to do. And after he did enter into the contract and after the billing was made of $51,500 plus $848, that the board did not do anything to indicate to them that it had not given him authority to do it. Now, we would argue that that they didn't do anything to bring this to the attention of the board. And
Neither did Miller.
but well, it's going to be difficult for them to prove some of these things, but if they get into court before a jury and they try to prove it, and I think they can get to a jury without any doubt on some of these things, we don't know what the jury would do.
Let me ask you.
We would like to have Millard Barbie there.
Another question, if it was, say, you and I with no witnesses, regardless of what we agreed, if my word against yours, which one's more convincing to a jury, right? In time of a case like this.
Yes, generally.
Now,
It's true.
without Miller being here, it's automatically, in my opinion, admission of a contract of this nature. What would be-
Admission on our part.
Right, that we are committed to live up to this, by him failure to show up for a trial.
Well, that does give us some concern. We would not have the kind of evidence that we would like to present unless we had Millard Barbie
This
here
is
for
what
the
I
trial.
would,
Well, this whole stipulation of the case that I've heard so far from Gene, there's never been any argument that we didn't know the money. I mean, at least I haven't. The one you showed us of Miller's testimony, and then when they went to court and hearings and so forth on it, there was never any argument that we didn't know $50,000. The
Miller
time
had a
limit.
couple of other letters admitting that we owe the $50,000.
All right, see, the only difference of opinion is the time that we owe the money. Miller says, and, the board says, that we'll pay as we receive money for the cookbooks. Moy says we owe the money now. And what Gene is saying, what the law states, is if we go to a jury trial, the jury's going to set what's going to be a reasonable amount of time. Well, it's going to be 3 years this June. So I don't think they're going to be too lenient on our part what is a reasonable amount of time. That's what he's talking about, the interest.
what bothers me as a jury, any place in the state of North Carolina where there versus organized labor. This
Yes.
is what bothers me.
Right, would some of you like to serve part of my time?
Jim, I'll send you some cigarettes and bring them to you.
Maybe we could get your time to run concurrent. You could serve
Maybe.
for all
Now,
of us.
I believe
I'm working on some of that.
I believe he had a set of figures, but Mr. Chairman,
Well, let's let the board first.
he has some figures that he'd like.
Gene, you got anything else you want to give?
Yeah,
I still, Wilbur, I want that one, he hasn't answered yet. Is Barbie a co-defendant, or is he defendant on behalf of the state council?
I'm sorry, I got thrown off a little while ago. I think that he is not an individual defendant any more than anyone else on the board at that time would have been.
He's acting on behalf of, they're suing him on behalf of the state council.
They're saying that this is an unincorporated association and that he was the president of it. And they're not saying that he has any individual liability, except as he would have as a member of the board or of the unincorporated association.
The question I was going to ask there a minute ago, I was trying to keep up with the figures for this boy. What was the total that he could possibly collect? Did you have that total out? I know
$12,473.11.
No, I think it's more than
34,000 something.
Well, you're talking about Moy. I've got it broke down. What he's going to give you is broke down. There's two other defendants in it. The total is $34,723.11. This does not include the interest that Gene was talking about, or the legal fees and court costs and so forth.
This includes the $17,000 he's already received, right?
Yes. The total amount was $52,348.
It does not include, it's that much more.
I know it is, but I mean, the 17,000 coming away from the 50 that he's talking
Yeah,
about.
that makes
This is
34.
the balance
I like
that
to
Jim
realize-
is talking about.
Yeah, well, see, the thing was, is what he's using the figure is $52,348. We paid $17,624.89. We owe $34,723.11.
Plus, there's a possibility of interest, which would be in
And there's some legal fees.
at least in the amount of $4,166.77. The costs of court, which would be determined in part by the length of time the trial would take. I don't know how much the costs are to date. Costs of court could amount to a few $100s. A trial like this could take several days, and
Jim, you got those minutes with you?
it could be around $39,000 to $40,000.
I'm ready to hear what kind of a settlement they want.
All right.
Well, let me make a couple of things. Now, how many members were on the board last year? First, were you on the board then? You were on the board then. Now, Red, was it you absent on June the 6th meeting? Or was it Julius
settled
Fry?
for these four.
You were absent that day.
I wasn't around.
What I'm trying to get at, this man came in, I was in the board meeting, you know, the day they presented it. And there's a key thing that I think we believe, as I assume it probably led everybody else to believe, that the initial printing was going to be for 10,000, and anything in that amount he didn't sell, he would take the loss on. But they come up with 40,000. Now that means that in my book, it still means that he could, if there's an initial loss, we could fight and make him take the initial loss of 10,000. So this is what I think the board assumed when he made that figure out, and what I assumed that I was observer Paul was here today, that being on the first day. But I assumed that any loss after the first 10,000 he would pay. So I think we could still fight him for that loss of 10, but we would have to have on March 23rd some board members who were in that meeting, who remember that testimony, who would be here and testify in behalf of the state association.
Does the minutes remember?
No. Minutes are...
Well, I've, okay, you're going to have something that I don't have. I have given Steve everything we have on this. Let's do that. We marked all sections, all the minutes. There's one other question that Art and I were talking about just a minute ago. On this initial letter, I don't know whether Steve has considered this portion of this replacement order for 40,000 cigarettes containing. The above order is considered under this maintaining in a union shop. Now, is Moy a union
expenses incurred.
Yeah, well, I never thought of it any other way, but then that we would help get him back here, but, to think that he would be reluctant to come back.
Well, we wrote him a letter, of course, we
Where
sent
did you
him.
mail it to?
Bob, you
Durham.
got that address?
He had never left Durham. I have reasons to know that it did not and was not forwarded. I've never talked to Millard since he left this country, but I have reasons to believe that it was never forwarded to him. So therefore, I doubt seriously if the man's aware of this.
Don't have it on me, but I can get it.
I think Millard Bobby will appear not for Wilbur Hobby, but for this organization. I'm certain of this. When he gets the communication, Wilbur, I don't think he ever got it. And
Well, this is,
Well, I wrote it to the only address we had
Right,
for him and
right.
sent a copy to Mr. Hobby, and that's all we needed
I
to
have
do at the
reasons
time.
to feel that it was
How,
you know what it is.
Is there any way that we could find out where he is located in?
Bob got a Christmas card from him, he's got his address there, and he says he can send it to him direct.
I think we ought to make that effort.
Well, you know, you could get it from his son, couldn't you? You know, he has a son that's a prisoner.
I think probably we could, it's not definitely.
We're gonna do this, you'll need a motion.
Yes.
I think a
I entertain a
from-
motion to that effect, Mr. Chairman.
Jennings, second.
With a motion duly made and second that the executive board go on record and requested Mr. Barbie to come back and appear in behalf of the organization at the trial in regards to the cookbooks on March 23rd.
Excuse me,
You wanna phrase
let's
that
don't put a
legally?
date in there,
Okay.
because they filed something yesterday in this suit asking for certain admissions, and they filed it yesterday, and it might be that we would need additional time, and would ask the court not to have the trial on the week of March 23rd, but have it at some later date. So if you
May-
go to
Instead of the
May I-
specified date.
May I just invert something here? As you know, this is our legislative conference in Washington. During this time, if we could get it postponed a few days, then we need a day to get with Millard, the board members that was on the board at the time, and sit down with you and let's us all, I don't believe in lying unless it's necessary, and let's get our tails together before we appear before these people, see? You follow me?
Yes,
We need
sir,
at least a
it's
day or a night together prior to this
Well,
thing.
quite frankly,
Absolutely.
there is no, for as the board knows. Now, there may be some insight that the people know that stopped at Miller's office from time to time or something. But what was presented to the board, the underwriting of 10,000, the fact that we were to sell, pay him as we sold the books, and the first 10,000, the money was automatically to go to him. That we did.
Director of Organization for North and South Carolina, Paul Christopher, and Tennessee, I believe. Paul Christopher, and Paul's with us today, and we're recognizing him now for a report on organizing and any other comments he'd like to make in regards to the organization. Paul?
Well, I'll try to make it very short because I know you're pressed for time. We've just completed the 100-day strike. General Electric, as you know. A minimum, in terms of our own statistics, of organizing was done during this period because it finally it got to the point where 7 of our 10 AFL-CIO Region 8 field representatives were assigned full-time to assisting in the GE strike relief program, informational boycotting, and the whole total operation.
Hey, I'd like to buy a cookbook.
You'll jam one down your damn throat.
Those of you who don't know our guest that just came in and so rudely interrupted our speaker, this is George Guernsey, the Associate Director of the Department of Education in Washington, is down to help us this weekend, and we're going to recognize him under good and welfare for a long speech. 3 minutes, George. I'll brief you now. So okay. Well, you didn't come to the right place. All right, Paul. Paul has the floor. Give me your attention, please.
So we are just now getting back into, full phase, full time organizing, and for those of you who do not know, Curtis Bullock, who is here, is stationed in Raleigh and works in this particular area. Ray Snell, normally stationed at Wilmington, North Carolina, is presently in Charleston, South Carolina, along with Bob Graham out of Charlotte at the Charleston Navy Yard, trying to defend exclusive recognition now enjoyed by the Metal Trades Council there against a raid by the National Association of Government Employees, NAGE, NAGI they call it, and Lodge Jackson, who most of you know, I believe, lives in Winston-Salem and normally operates out of Winston-Salem, is currently in Charlotte, North Carolina. This again is a defensive operation where the distributive workers out of District 65 of retail, wholesale, and department store employees defected from RWDSU and has allied itself with the ALA, the Alliance for Labor Action, which is made up of UAW, the Teamsters, and the International Chemical Workers. I would point out to you that, as I say, 3 of our men now are engaged in defensive operations. It is quite possible that more of our staff may be involved in similar defensive campaigns trying to help save the bargaining rights now held by AFL-CIO affiliates. I can tell you something else, and this is a judgment, and I can't support it with statistics and won't attempt to, that we are beginning to have more decertification petitions filed now than we have seen at any time in a long while. I am going to be very frank with you that some of our international unions, through representatives who are supposedly assigned to servicing their respective local unions, are not doing as alert and good enough job as they should. And this opens the door for these decertification elections. And when we get calls for assistance from the national and international unions, and we do not get into any campaigns unless we are officially requested by a responsible person in the organization in any campaign, whether it's a new organizing project or to help save bargaining rights in the face of a decertification election or petition. The psychological climate is changing. Brother Jennings mentioned a moment ago the imminence, if not already an established fact, that we are facing a depression or a recession. And this is changing the organizational climate very substantially. A great many workers who want to organize and have indicated previously that they do want to organize are now having second thoughts because they don't feel that they can just go anywhere and get another job in case they lose their jobs by virtue of their union activity in an unorganized plant where we're trying to organize. A year ago, I suppose 25% of the calls coming into my office were from employers seeking employees to fill openings they had for jobs. That situation is drastically changed now. It's very rare now that we get a call from any employer asking us to suggest where he may get additional help. We're getting calls from workers who are out of jobs asking us where we think they might find one. Unfortunately, we're still principally involved in industrial types of organization, that is, manufacturing industries. We have wanted to get more into the servicing field to the white-collar groups, particularly among the young people. Our staff limitations are such that we are 4 men short of our normal quota. There seems to be no chance at all now that in the near future we'll be able to implement our staff. As we lose men now, we just lose them and there's no replacement. So we're losing our staff through attrition, either retirement, death. Some of them are changing jobs, going with international unions. And the fact that UAW withdrew from the AFL-CIO substantially reduced AFL-CIO's capital tax revenue, and the General Electric strike added on top of that means that financially the AFL-CIO is not in position to add to its organizational staff at this time. We only have one organizer in the state of South Carolina, George Kaiser in Columbia. If we have emergency assignments in South Carolina, we have to send someone in from Tennessee or from North Carolina. We have 3 men in the state of Tennessee, one in Memphis, one at Knoxville, one in the Tri-Cities, Bristol, Johnson City, Kingsport area. We have requests for organizational assistance that we won't be able to fill for months. A big backlog. So there is still interest in organizing, but I would point out to you that organizing today, in the face of the opposition we are facing, requires much more sophistication on the part of the organizing staff than we have been accustomed to if we are going to realize success in our organizing work. I can tell you that the employers are getting smarter. They are building cases, and we are, in the state of North Carolina, for example, a 5-year survey indicates that where we won elections, where we were finally certified, this is 5 years, from 1964 through 68, we got contracts in only 30% of the cases where we won certification. Some of those we got only after strikes. In the state of South Carolina, the percentage is 20%. In the state of Tennessee, the percentage is close to 60%, about 57%. Which points up, I think, and I may as well mention this, that the political power structure, the political structure, one, and then the industrial power structure, in each of the 3 states is very different. In North Carolina, all of you know that the textile industry has terrific influence with the political powers that be. The tobacco companies have influence and are using it in ways we don't even realize, although most of the tobacco companies outside of Reynolds are organized. We have the banking fraternity, and we have Duke Power Company, and the Carolina Power and Light, and we have the furniture industry. Now, are the 5 chief legs of the power structure in the state of North Carolina. Unless we can improve upon our political action program, unless we can do better legislatively, the organizing climate is going to continue to deteriorate in North Carolina. We have problems in the state of Tennessee that could very well lead to Tennessee becoming almost as bad as North Carolina. Albert Gore is up against very serious opposition. So this year we're going to find our staff, and this please don't put in the minutes. Most of you know that the Coke director, the area Coke director, Wilbur Hobby used to be one of them, who would ask for our staff assistance in registration campaigns, get out the vote campaigns. So our staff is very versatile. They're well trained, and we are called upon to help in, not only in organizing, not only in defending organizations against attacks they may be under, but we are called upon to help in the political action program, our COPE endeavors, and so this year in the state of Tennessee, I'm not sure how much organizing we are doing. I might point out to you something else, that in the state of Tennessee, we are organizing less than, I say less than, 1 out of every 5 new plants that go into operation. In the state of North Carolina, we are organizing less than 1 out of 12. In South Carolina, we are organizing less than 1 out of 15. this gives us 3 years from the time they start operation until you decide whether or not you organize. Obviously, it means better cooperation on the part of our field staff and the International Union representatives. And I could point out to you that we say to any national or international union where we agree to assist that union in an organizing campaign, that during the course of the organizing campaign, if we are successful in getting certification and are successful in negotiating a contract, that once the dues start coming into the local union treasuries, that such local union will become affiliated with the proper local central body and the state organization. On that, we make no compromise. We tell the International Union if they are not willing to do this, we don't officially say this, but we tell them very frankly we'll drag our heels and their campaigns will be on the back burners. There are some situations, I say to you very frankly, and it's unfortunate, again, don't put this in the minutes to a local union, but in the course of our work, if we know, I point this out, I've said this in conventions at South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee, that if your executive officers will furnish to me a list of the known unaffiliated local unions. I'm not talking about the affiliated local, just the unaffiliated local. As we get into areas in our organizing work where such unaffiliated local unions are in existence, and we try to mobilize some help from each established union in the area where we are organizing, we will make every effort to persuade that local union not affiliated to become affiliated with the local central body, if there is one that has jurisdiction, or the state organization. We're going to Fayetteville tonight. We may issue a charter for a local central body to Fayetteville group who have been operating informally as the Greater Fayetteville Labor Council for a couple of years. And some new plants are going in. Kelly Springfield is one. We have some very tough situations. Lumberton, North Carolina, Laurinburg, North Carolina, that area down there, believe you me, it's a different world. As Red Phillips here can tell you, anytime union representative checks into a motel or hotel, his name is immediately reported to the Chamber of Commerce by the motel. He is that, who he is, and so forth. These people are tailed, they're followed, their rooms are bugged, telephone calls are monitored. Proving this, another matter, we are giving more and more of our attention to that. Active union people are fired quickly now, not lately. The people who complain, the attorneys for the companies and the associations, the manufacturers associations, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Western North Carolina Industries, for example. And if you don't know about this one, it's a classic. They advise each employer how to build a case against employees they suspect, or most suspect, would most likely, in case of real disturbance among the workers, be interested in trying to do some organizing. His absentee record is recorded. They issue him warning slips in writing. They build a case against the guy long before any organizing campaign is even started. So even getting a complaint now issued by the labor board is much more difficult because of the preliminary work and the sophisticated efforts of the employers. And unless we measure up to it, we're going to see more and more of our time wasted, even though we work harder. Be glad to try to answer any questions, Brother Harvey.
Are there any questions from any of the board members?
What was it, did you say Western Carolina?
Industry.
That's Harry
This is
Clark.
Mr. Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Phillips Lamp case is a classic, and there we found, the board found, we had it, we knew it all the time, but there he was for the first time linked as an agent of the company in opposition to the union. This case is in the courts now.
All right, we appreciate that testimony, Paul, and if we will, we'll move along and ask everybody, the next few people, try to maybe stay within a 5-minute limit. Jim, the financial report.
Yeah. Now, everybody got those financial reports out? December and January. I'll try to make this real brief. In the general fund, December report, back our first motion, back in our September meeting, the board allowed us to borrow $10,000 from the dedicated assessment fund to be used in the general fund, repaid at a later date as finances permitted. In November, I paid $5,000 back. This was a little premature on my part, so in December I had to borrow it back. But I did this with the authorization that we already had the $10,000 board approval to go into the general fund. Our income in the general fund on per capita tax was $2,995.20. Our cash disbursed was $6,604.13, minus the accrued taxes, $400.44. The total disbursement, $7,004.57. You have a list of items here. Would you like for me to read these or real quickly, or you want to ask questions if you have any questions on any of them?
Just let the board members look at them. I think you can look at them fast and he can read them if there are any questions.
Yeah. Well, I gave you dedicated assessment. We had cash receipts of $3,703.63, plus our bond that we cashed, the $15,000 bond, and we received $187.50 interest. And our total disbursements on the day here is the chairman. In the 8th district, we have an upcoming meeting to establish a COPE committee in the 8th district. 5th district, we had a meeting to establish a 5th district COPE, and they decided in the 5th district that the 5th district COPE be handled through the Central Labor Union and Brother Hardy here. Way it's shaping up as far as our congressional races, our marginal districts outlined to us by the National AFL-CIO were the 4th and the 6th. In the 4th we don't have a primary, in the 6th we don't have a primary. The two primaries we have are in the 1st and in the 7th district. And in the first, we have Walter Jones, the incumbent, and he's challenged by L.C. Nixon, black minister out of Newbern. And they do have a Republican opponent and an American Party opponent in the first district. In the second district, L.H. Fountain is getting a free ride. There's no opposition either from the Democrats, American, or Republican Party in the second district. In the third district, you have David N. Henderson, the incumbent,